Hello. Oh, hello, guys and gals, and this is another reading from Strange Monsters and Great Searches by George Laycock. And we are on Chapter 8, I believe. But first of all, as always, we will be reading the copyright information here. As always, it's the way we start. It says copyright 1973 by George Laycock, all rights reserved, published in large print by arrangement with Doubleday and Company, Incorporated, set in Photon 18-point Helvetica, medium. And we are ready for Feathered Monsters. Number 8 here. Right there. 8. Feathered Monsters. And we have a bookmark right here. Right here. Feathered Monsters. This ought to be fun. Wherever early explorers traveled, they discovered creatures new and strange. Sometimes these wild beasts and birds were so different that they were scarcely believable. Consider, for example, the dodo. The first Europeans to find them were Portuguese sailors who came to the island of Mauritius in 1507. They are believed to have returned several times through the years. Then in 1958, Commander Jacob van Neck cruised along the shores of this island east of Madagascar. There were no Europeans living here, nor, for that matter, on the two neighboring islands. The commander dropped anchor and went ashore to explore. Deep forests shaded much of the island. Whatever else they found on the island, the strangest creature of all was a remarkable bird that looked as if it had been designed by a prankster playing a joke on naturalists. The bird weighed about 50 pounds. It stood on short yellow legs and had a somewhat round-shaped body. Its wings were small. They would not begin to lift the great weight that great weight from the ground. Its tiny tail was a curled plume standing up like a little feather duster. The bird's head was dominated by its bill, 9 inches long, thick, and hooked on the end. Unlike the crow or jay, this bird seemed slow-witted, not very bright at all. This shortcoming was hidden behind a comical look on its face. Apparently, however, this bird had no need for brilliance any more than it had a reason to fly. It faced no natural enemies of consequence. So what did it matter if it stumbled clumsily and toppled over itself when running through the forest? Neither did it matter if its low-hanging undercarriage dragged on the ground. Some believe that the big, clumsy bird was named because of its call. Sailors who first discovered it claimed that it said Dodo. Wherever people encountered wild creatures, they have a tendency to ask immediately what good such animals might be to people. This test was at once applied to the dodo. For all its strange design, the bird was larger than a swan and looked to its discoverers like a lot of fresh meat packed into one bird. The dodo bird proved extremely easy to kill, and an advantage to sailors, but not to dodos. All the dodo hunter had to do was stay out of reach of its stout bill, while striking the bird a fatal blow on the back of its head with a club. For the first time in its recent history, the big bird had met an enemy capable of coping with a dodo. Back on ship with the dead birds, the crew waited while the cook stewed the prize. Each of the birds was 3 times as heavy as a turkey. Only a few would be needed to feed the entire crew. The dodo, which had proved easy to kill, however, was far more difficult to chew. According to Commander Van Neck's writings, the longer it had simmered in the pot, the tougher it seemed to be. Whether this is to be blamed more on the dodo than the cook, no one will ever know, because both have now been gone for a few hundred years. Later, however, others who cooked dodos claimed their flesh to be tasty and tender. It is said that once a year these birds produce a single white egg and incubated on a platform of grass. Likewise, it is said that the dodo used the wings, which were no good for flying, for fighting instead. As they rushed upon each other, the pounding of their wings against the flesh of their neighbors resounded through the forest like claps of thunder. One species is said to have been equipped with a ball-like bone on each wing, and to have used these as a kind of war club during territorial struggles with others of its kind. Quite likely, people back in Europe would not have believed the commander as he described the dodo bird he had discovered. There was but one answer. He must carry one back, then no one could scoff. So Commander Van Neck proudly escorted the first dodo ashore in Europe in 1599. The ponderous bird, fat and unbelievable, soon became a favorite wherever it was displayed in the following years. Others were taken to zoos in Europe. Meanwhile, the artists of the day, seeking fresh subject matter, painted the dodo in numerous pictures. As events turned out, it is good that they did. Mauritius, where the dodo was first seen by man, lies off the coast of Madagascar. In addition, there is the nearby Reunion Island, which had a dodo of its own. Rodriguez Island, which had another dodo-like occupant, called the solitaire. They were discovered about the same time and were all then in line for the same fate. Less than half a century after its first discovery, the dodo of Mauritius was in for serious trouble. In 1644, Holland sent colonists to establish homes and farms on Mauritius. With them went hogs, dogs, cats, and people, all of which would consume dodos and their young or eggs. Hogs are especially destructive to ground nesting birds, and free-running dogs must have worried, chased, and killed the stumbling dodos. Then the dodo was gone from Mauritius. Is believed to have become extinct about 1681. Then soon it was also extinct on the neighboring island of Reunion. It may have persisted a while longer on Rodriguez, but the solitaires there were soon gone too, as dead as a dodo. True, the dodo, dumb and ugly, never did have a lot going for it. It just went quietly about its island world, doing whatever dodos went about quietly doing. When it was gone, there was little evidence that it ever existed except in the pictures artists had painted in Europe. As for mounted specimens, there was known to be only one. It was in a private collection and was eventually transferred to the collection of a museum in Oxford, England. There, when the staff was cleaning up the place one day, someone noticed the odd stuffed dodo. What a ratty-looking specimen it was. The feathers were broken, rough, and out of place. Its general run-down appearance was enough to make a tidy museum staff feel shame and chagrin. The staff looked at the tattered remnant, and the museum director made his decision. Take the bird out and dispose of it. So the last of the dodos was banished, but before it was fed into the flames, the head and one leg, still in pretty good shape, was taken off and saved. New evidence of what the dodo looked like came to light in the depths of a muddy swamp on Mauritius in 1865. That year, a collection of dodo bones was found preserved in the mud. From these spare parts, museum workers assembled skeletons of the bird. These became the foundation for restorations or man-made dodos. Today, you may see in a museum what appears to be the preserved dodo, but it will be only the work of a clever taxidermist who has assembled a counterfeit model of one of the most remarkable big birds in the world the world ever knew. As big as it was, the 50-pound dodo was a bit of a midget compared with another bird known to have lived on the island of Madagascar. Scientists studying bones and fossils have given this towering creature the name Apiornix maximus. It has also been called the elephant bird. For what we know about Maximus, it seems safe to say that this was the largest bird ever to walk the earth. A distant cousin of the ostrich and emu, the elephant bird is believed to have weighed half a ton. It stood on legs as thick as tree trunks and had a kick sufficient to drop a bull dead in its tracks. To be kicked to death by a bird would seem an ignoble way for a bull to depart. Remarkable, indeed, was the egg of the elephant bird. It had a shell about as thick as a silver dollar and was so big it was used to hold water around the homes of native people living on the island. It would hold more than a gallon of liquid. Epiornix maximus could have been forgiven for taking pride in such a magnificent egg. Scientific interest in the bird ran high in the early 1600s. Naturalists believed they might yet find some alive. The French government appointed a governor of Madagascar who was an observant naturalist, interested in the remarkable world around him. Eventually, he wrote a book of the experiences. In those pages, he mentioned the bird with eggs so large they were used as water jugs, and added that he himself had seen such eggs, but a series of unfortunate events was to cut the story short. First, when the governor was on his way back to France, where naturalists might have asked him more about the elephant birds, he encountered a gang of pirates. They killed him. Gradually, the elephant bird slipped from conversation, memory, and scientific concern. 200 years passed. Then the story was revived. Traveling naturalists once more began to hear reports of the remarkable giant birds in the interior of Madagascar. As interest mounted, efforts were made to collect the eggs and bring them out to civilization where the light of science might shine upon them, but only one such egg was known to have been collected. It was on its way back to France when the ship transporting it sailed into a massive storm. The ship crashed upon the shoals and sank from sight beneath the waves, egg and all. Then in 1848, a trader heard again of the giant birds and was told that deep in the inland portion of the island they still survived, but they had never been seen by scientists to this day. The last of the elephant birds is doubtless gone. With it went the last of the legendary species, the biggest bird that ever lived. There remains much that we shall never know about this feathered monster. This has been a reading from, let me get my bookmark back in. This has been a reading from Strange Monsters and Great Searches by George Laycock. If you like this content, make sure you like and subscribe and ring the bell so you know when I upload. And if you want to support me in any way, all that information will be in the description below. As always, thanks for watching, everyone, and have a great day.